G'day guys, welcome back. Let's do another quick update on what's happening in Ukraine and another successful couple of days for the Ukrainian army pushing back the Russian military again. So like I said in my last video, I said I think they've broken their back. This the massive push that we had a couple of weeks ago all the way across from Kharkiv has really put the Russian army under the pump. And like I said, I think they've broken their back now. So just in the last 24 hours, the Ukrainians have taken back Liman, which with another amazing move. And they've moved the front line another 40 kilometers, or about 40 kilometers. Now again, I think the Russians fell for another bait and switch. So over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the Ukrainian army have actually been building up troops here in Orikhiv. So they added in about 15 to 20,000 troops here. And then they were releasing information saying this is going to be our next attack point and our next attack point. And then the Russians also moved troops over here. And then while they watched all the Russians move over to this side, they thought, well, why don't we just keep attacking over here? So the Russians were almost encircled. They managed to retreat. So we're not too sure how many people they lost or how many were captured, but there hasn't been any evidence that there was thousands of men captured. But they definitely lost a lot of people in the retreat. Okay, there's some serious video and photographs of the highway of hell on the way out, but I'm not going to show that. I don't want to get a ban from YouTube, but you can find that online. And also something interesting about this, if we go back in time, almost 100 years ago to the day, almost, only a couple of months off, but this was actually the German attack against the Russians, just in Izium, and it's almost exactly the same. They did exactly the same thing. They attacked from two sides. They cut the Russian army in half, and in this battle, they actually got 28,000 soldiers from the Russians. But this area is important because once you break through here, there's only two lines. So these two roads here, and there's a train line here. So that's the only two northern supply lines that the Russians have. Now we've already got reports that the Ukrainian army are already up here at Savtova. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So they might have already pushed as far as 50 kilometers. And also the other good thing about Liman, and if we go in a little bit further, Yampil. So Yampil is actually on a bit of a hill, so it's high ground, and that means that they're at the same height over as at Lysychansk. So the artillery can definitely reach over there now at 30 kilometers. So that will be their next target, is just keep the pressure on there, make the Russians think that they're going to attack there when they won't. They'll just go around and they'll just cut off their supply route. So like we said in the last video, if they can cut through to here, which I think they're already there, and then it's just and there's no defenses here for Russia, and if they can cut this train line, the Russian army has to move everything all the way around to come back back to Luhansk. So, like I said in my last video, I can see this whole northern section falling to the Ukrainians pretty quickly, and particularly with the way the Russian military is performing. All right, and more good news if we go down to the Kherson area. So again, another major push. Now, this is an extremely bad situation for the Russians to be in. Like I said, you never want to be fighting with your back to water, ever. Okay, and they've just been stuck on this little peninsula, or this little island, and the Ukrainian army must be just loving this. And they actually moved in about 25,000 troops to put them into this situation. Why they would do that, I don't know. But anyway, so the Ukrainian artillery has just been popping them left, right, and centre. I said that if this push here, if they can just get to 20 kilometres or further than that, everyone, all the soldiers in this area would retreat immediately. They'll be looking behind them constantly, and that's what's happened. Okay, so obviously something's happened in here, and they've just walked out of there. Now, this is the same situation up here. All of these Russians on the line must be going, Jesus Christ, we're going to get encircled again here. So we definitely got word that they've made it all the way down to Duchany. So that's actually coming from the Russian military. So how far is that? That's 20. So they've gone another 20-kilometer push. So, you know, when you talk military, 20 kilometers, there's massive amounts to be giving up in one day. Okay, and then if you just have a look, you go another 20 kilometers, you nearly encircled them. Okay, so this whole army up here, if they can push it across here like that, this whole army here will have to retreat. Okay, so once it happens, it happens really quickly. Now, the other thing on the map is it doesn't change anything because it's really hard to supply. So they've got all these men and that, but there's no bridges. There's one bridge, and it's damaged, and apparently you can't get tanks across it. You can only get like small vehicles. So they're struggling with their supplies at the best of times, let alone in a situation where they can also get hit by artillery from every direction, basically. So same thing here. They don't have to push the Ukrainian army. They can just sit here for the rest of their lives and just pop them off with their artillery. And we know how good they are with that. All right, so that's another update there. So again, I can see this all falling apart really soon. The Russian army are going to have to retreat out of Kherson, and then they're in exactly the same situation again. So if they get pushed back to the river, okay, and we've got a new line, it's the same situation. The Ukrainians can just sit there and just keep popping them away, and the Russians have got all of their backs to water again. So my prediction is in a couple of months, I think the Russian army will be all the way back into Crimea. And then they've got exactly the same problem again. They've got water all the way around them, and they've only got one supply line. So I think if they keep going like this could be all over in early next year. And particularly if the Ukrainian army can cut them in the middle. If they can split the Russian army in two, it's all over. And their morale is so terrible at the moment that anything is possible at any point. So, and we've seen what happened, you know, in what's happening in Russia with all the men leaving and they don't want to fight and all that sort of stuff. Now, another important thing about that, the last time there was a mobilization like this was almost 100 years ago in 1922, something like that, which is the Russian Civil War. And it's always a dangerous thing to give 300,000 men who are disillusioned and don't want to fight weapons, because the first thing they'll do is they'll take over your position. Okay, so this is a really dangerous move by Putin, that, you know, giving all these men weapons, and I can't see it working out too good for him. Also, important thing here in Kupiansk. Okay, so the Ukrainian army have gone across the Oskil River here, and they actually have supplies coming through. So we got some video of them actually having with their pontoon bridges across the Oskil River. Now, this is pretty rare because the Ukrainian army don't release anything that they don't want the Russians to see. Okay, so for them to have a pontoon bridge and release this video means that it can't be hit, which means that the Russians don't have any artillery and they don't have any air power in the region. Otherwise, they would not release this information. So that's another interesting thing. And that's about it. So if you like the videos, please leave a comment and we'll catch you in the next one. Slava Ukraine!